Hi, this is Subramaniam Shankaran from IEEE. September 2023, last month, we had 514 ransomware attacks across the world. So the peak of the ransomware attacks that happened across the world was just last month. Now, actually, if you see, the ransomware attacks are continuously on the increasing trend. So we can expect October, November, and especially December and January, when it's in festival time, people are taking off for Christmas, etc. So we can expect a lot of attacks because ideally, the less number of staffs for IT and security across the world, unless otherwise you have outsourced, you have a 24/7 security operating center with you to stay vigilant. We might have a lot of dollars. Okay. Now, in this video, we're going to have a look at what ransomware actually is and how can you mitigate yourself and secure yourself from the ransomware attacks. Now, for example, assume that you've got a big house, okay, royal place to actually stay, and somebody else has locked the gate and they are not giving you the key. Okay, so that's what is actually going to happen with ransomware. So they're saying, you pay me the money and I'll give you the keys to open the door, open the gate, get inside. Yeah. So the situation is same with the ransomware. Ransomware belongs to a family called as a cryptovirology. So it's a cryptography plus the malware. Okay, malware, I'll tell you something. I started my career mid-90s. So we had a lot of virus problems. Okay, so we had an antivirus called Norton antivirus. So you work on the system and you find the system is actually working weird. Okay, then the programs are disappearing or the screen is flickering. Okay, you update the antivirus and you run it, and you can either quarantine it or you can update the signatures. You need to update the signature on the client. So that time it was not an antivirus server, and then we need to it pushes itself to the other endpoints. No. So every system we need to go individually, and we have to click on live update. It updates the antivirus. And sometimes what happens is, we had users who will face and performance issues with the system, and they go to the task manager. There's actually a process running called RTV scan. They'll actually kill it. Okay, so they'll actually tell me, you know what, my system had been performing very poor. It's very slow. I looked at the RTV scan, the task manager, I killed it. Then we said, don't do it. It's an antivirus. They say it's an antivirus boss, but you know what? We are not able to do our work. Now, those times were different. Okay, mid-90s. Okay, the usage of internet was not that prevalent. Okay, it's a privilege to use the internet. But things changed. Then came what's called the worm. Okay, worms infected or impacted the network. Okay, so the objective of the virus, the objective of the worm, was more towards the attacking the availability part of the CIA. Okay, so the confidentiality and integrity was actually okay. Okay, at least the confidentiality was okay. Integrity part of it, yeah, they would have corrupted some file. Okay, but again, the end result is something is not working. Then came the Trojans. Okay, it came and sat on your system as a genuine file. Okay, you refer to Helen of Troy story. Okay, it sits on your system as a genuine file. Then it's actually a malicious software called as a malware. Now the Trojans were opening up the back door for the hackers, okay, to access the system, and it's actually called the command and control center. Okay, in fact, I have a video on my channel, that works on the browser exploitation framework, and MS of Venom, okay, the part of the Kali Linux used to create the backdoor, okay, and Shikadaga Nai, okay, as you all know, it's a very popular encoder from Kali Linux. You can use to do the encoding, iterate it multiple times, upload it to the virus total, and see to it it's not actually recognized by the virus total on many of the antiviruses that are hosted on the virustotal.com. And things are actually okay, then you ship it. But how do you actually ship it to the destination? The browser exploitation framework had something called as a flash update. Okay, you can also name the exe as flash.exe. You can actually update it. If possible, maybe tomorrow or day after, I'll put a video on how to use the browser exploitation framework and deliver it to the end user. Okay. Now there are other ways of actually evading the antivirus also, the wheel and shelter. Let me also try to do a video on that and send it to you. And if you're going to use, I have practically tried this wheel and shelter. Okay, and things are actually okay. I was able to upload on the virus total, and the popular antivirus application softwares were not able to detect it as a virus. Okay, now these EXEs, okay, if I'm going to deliver it as a flash.exe, as a flash update, okay, then people don't doubt it, okay, they install it. Okay, that opens the back door. Okay, so opening up a back door, okay, was to steal some information. Now, the cryptography until this particular point of time was used only for constructive purposes. That means you encrypt the data so that only authorized people can actually decrypt it, actually see it. Now, that's where this ransomware actually came. Okay, ransomware, there was a locker ransomware which you'll actually go through. And the ransomware, the hacker used asymmetric encryption to encrypt your complete data using one key. The other key is what he's going to hold until you pay him a ransom, but there's no surety. After paying a ransom also, you might have the keys given to you. Okay, let's look at the 7 stages of the ransomware here. Recognizance, initial access, lateral movement and privilege escalation, deployment of ransomware payload, encryption and impact, extortion and communication, recovery and mitigation. Now, what is reconnaissance? Reconnaissance is to gather as much as information as possible about a particular target. Okay, you have chosen a target, you want to actually attack them. It might or might not work. Okay, they might have very good security controls in place, so it's not easy for you to penetrate the network and hit them, okay, or encrypt their systems. Now, to find the systems belonging to a particular organization on the internet, okay, there are a lot of tools. The Harvester is also one of the tools from Kali Linux that I have used. But the most fascinating tools which I enjoy personally is called Recognizance. It has got so many modules that you can actually load. You can gather as much as information as possible. And the best part of it, there is also a reporting module, and you can generate an HTML report or CSV report, and you can use it as a first step towards your penetration testing. The same thing the hacker will do. When the hacker does it, okay, it's called black hat hacker. Okay, it is actually called as an hacking, but the white hat hackers, the penetration testers does it. Okay, so we actually call it as a penetration testing. Now, for the cryptology, okay, so we have not cryptology, it's called crypt analysis. Okay, crypt analysis is a subject by which you can break a crypto system. If the good guy does it, okay, it becomes they become a crypt analyst. Okay, so it's again white hat crypt analyst. Okay, so they try to break the crypto system to find the weakness of the algorithm. They report it. But the same thing done by a black hat crypt analyst, okay, it becomes an attack. The algorithm is actually called as a broken algorithm. So for the same reason, the data encryption standard that was actually broken by the Electronic Frontier Foundation 1997 December, 98 January, okay, it's a broken algorithm, but the Electronic Frontier Foundation is a research company. Okay, they tried to break it, and they actually broke it. The investment of $200,000 US, but again, not everybody will actually do it. Now, what is that you are actually getting it as a return? When you invest $200,000 US becomes a big question. Now, coming out of this particular one, identifying a target, okay, and gathering as much as information as possible is not a rocket science. If you are a master in using Recognizance, you spend half a day or one day, you can make the maximum out of a particular target. Okay. Now, this is one of the techniques that is used for reconnaissance. Now, after this, you can also find the vulnerabilities on the target system. Okay, though I'm not diving onto it, but target selection is you will choose a target which has got a lot of vulnerabilities so that you can actually penetrate and attack them. Now, vulnerabilities always exist until we discover, and the only thing is that is always changing in IT. Okay, everything is changing in IT. There's a system today, and there's an incident that is resolved, or a service request that is fulfilled, or change that is actually implemented. Okay, that will change the state of the system. Now, the changing the state of the system basically means that the security posture of the system is not the same before and after the change, or before and after the incident resolution, before and after the request fulfillment. That's why we need to implement the service management system to have controlled environment to work in IT. Okay, so the vulnerabilities exist. Okay, vulnerabilities are discovered. If the vulnerabilities are reported today, until yesterday, we didn't even know that the vulnerability existed. So continuous vulnerability scan is one of the best defense mechanism that you're going to have, or identification mechanism that you're actually going to have. Weak access control, inadequate patch management, absence of network segmentation. We are going to discuss a lot about this in the coming slides actually. Initial access. Now, the weakest link of the complete security chain is always the human. Okay, it could be a social engineering attack. For social engineering attack, we have phishing, we have smishing, SMS, we have wishing with the voice, and we have phishing with the QR code. Now, okay, recently more number of attacks are reported with the QR code, or QR phishing is actually called as. Okay, we'll have a separate video on what this QR phishing basically is. Okay, we have exploit kits and we have vulnerable software. Now I have with the Recognizance, okay, especially the Recon NG. Okay, let's also discuss about the harvester. When I execute the harvester -D for the domain and -B for the source, it gives me the list of systems. And if I'm going to find target, it's all public IP, right? So I can use fping or nping to see whether those systems reports on the network. Okay, normal ping, okay, which is an ICMP ping, TCP ping. Okay, sometimes the system will not respond to an ICMP ping because ICMP is blocked with the firewall. TCP ping actually works. I can find out the system using the TCP ping. I can use it on, let's say, an vulnerability scanning software to find what are the vulnerable applications running. Maybe after an Nmap port scan, find the vulnerability. Okay, then I have exploit kits to exploit the vulnerability and hack the system. This is also one of the ways for the initial access. Lateral movement. Okay, now you can disable and local admin access to most of your endpoints, and you can use a privilege account management software or password management software, okay, to vault your password. So there is no domain admin, there's no local admin access given. But if somebody can do a privilege escalation, that defeats the purpose of all the control that you're actually putting with respect to identity and access management. Yeah. So privilege escalation is something that we need to try to see if somebody can elevate themselves to and root equivalent or administrator equivalent. Okay. So exploiting the misconfigurations. Okay, and this was one of the top 10 vulnerabilities on OWASP, I think, until a few years back. Okay, so insecure configurations and credential theft and reuse pass the hash. Now, in almost all the authentication mechanism, the password is actually converted to a hash value before it is presented to the authentication server. Now, to do a replay attack, okay, I don't need to know the password. Okay, if I know the hash value, that itself is enough. That is actually called as pass the hash. Exploiting the vulnerabilities using stolen credentials. Let me tell you something. There's a beautiful tool on Kali Linux called SQL Map. Okay, SQL, if you can find a website, okay, which is vulnerable for the SQL injection attack, either using a single quote on after a number, you can use Google Docs, okay, in URL item_id equal to question mark, okay, then it lists down the sites for you, and then you can, if you can choose a particular site and put a single quote, okay, it will find out whether the site is vulnerable for the SQL injection attack or not. You can use Vega, Burp Suite, or Z-Attack proxy to find that as well. Okay. Now, if the target doesn't have an IDPS system or IDPS to secure them, or a WAF to actually secure them, the entire website is prone for the SQL injection attack. There are a lot of websites across the world which are prone for the SQL injection. Okay, and then you can sometimes, if it's a website, right, if it's got a user ID and password and actually log in, you can find a database and a table and a column with the username and the password. You can actually dump it. Now, the beauty of this SQL injection map tool, okay, is to, it has got the provision, it has got a dictionary using which it will try to match the hash. Okay, it's like a collision. Okay, because hash is a one-way function, right? You cannot actually go back. It's not like encryption and decryption. Hash cannot be reversed. Okay, so it will try to, from the dictionary, it will try to create a hash value and try to map it to what you actually have in the column. If it matches, well, you have the password with you. So this is also a possibility. Okay, the insecure configurations or misconfigurations will lead you to pass the hash or to find out the actual password from the stolen credentials. Abusing trusted application services, you can go to National Vulnerability Database, okay, NVD, okay, the government website hosted in US to find out the vulnerable applications. Now, these are the types of ransomware. Encryption ransomware. Okay, in encryption ransomware, the hacker is going to encrypt your complete system with a key, and he's going to hold the other key. Okay, we're not going to say the public or private. Okay, no. So asymmetric key has got two keys. One key he will use for encryption, the other key which is used for decryption, something that he's going to hold until you pay him a ransom. The locker ransomware, your system is locked. You cannot use it until you pay a ransom. In the hybrid, it's both. But nowadays, what we actually see is the double extortion ransomware. Now, imagine in the encryption ransomware scenario, the hacker has encrypted the complete infrastructure and you have a very good backup. So what you can actually do is you don't need to pay a ransom to the hacker. Okay, you can restore it from the backup and you can start working. It's a business as usual. So the hacker is not going to have his motives or objectives met. Okay, so now what the hackers are doing is they're exfiltrating the data, and then they are actually encrypting the complete infrastructure. So they exfiltered data with them. Okay, if you're not going to pay them the ransom, okay, they'll say that we'll leak it to the internet. So now it becomes a name shame. Okay, you'll have reputational impact. Okay, you need to pay them a ransom, and after that also there's no surety. One thing is for sure: after you pay a ransom, there's no surety, okay, of getting the key for the decryption. Okay, it's a risk that you will actually take. Okay, preparing yourself for the ransomware attack is the best thing. We're going to have a look at that as well. Methods: email attachments and link, drive-by, download, exploit kits is self-explanatory. Encryption and impact: operational disruption. You cannot work. Everything is encrypted. What can you actually do with this? You cannot actually work there. Okay, data loss and the corruption. Okay, financial loss, reputational damage, legal regulatory ramifications or consequences. Now, what's going to happen with the legal and regulatory ramifications? Basically, if it's going to be a privacy impact, the data that is exfiltered and the data that is encrypted is a private data, and if you are part of the UK or the European Union, okay, you are governed by the EU GDPR, UK GDPR. Now, Saudi Arabia has got PDPL. You have to report to Saraya. India has got Data Protection Board of India, and we have got PDPC in Singapore. All the countries are coming up, okay, with a body to whom you have to report if it's going to be an privacy incident. Okay, it's going to be you're going to have a legal or regulatory consequences. Okay, if the private data is actually involved with this. Extortion and communication. If you are willing to pay the ransom, you can pay. They'll demand the payment with Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, and they'll give you payment deadlines and threats and proof of exfiltration. Okay, is what you need to have. If not willing to pay, consider legal actions, funding the criminal activities, or fund somebody else, okay, to fight them. Okay, no guarantee of decryption. Okay, if you're not willing to pay, if there is no guarantee of decryption, and funding criminal activities also, like if you are willing to pay the ransom, that means you are funding the criminal activities. It is illegal in most of the countries. And you can consider the cyber insurance coverage, okay, for this. Now, recovery and mitigation is the seventh phase of the ransomware attack. Isolate and contain. If a system is actually infected with an malware, isolate the system. It's like, how did we isolate the COVID patients, okay, when we actually scan them, when they are positive? Do it. Incident analysis, restore the data, decrypting the data, and system rebuilding. These are the steps that you actually need to consider. But all these things are possible only if you have your security incident response procedures good. ISO 27035. Okay, security incident management. You need to implement that according to the guidelines specified to ensure that you are prepared for handling any security incident, including the ransomware. Remediation, backups, offline backups. Now things are online. It keeps on encrypting. You are not able to contain it. It will also encrypt your online backup. Okay. I know a lot of cases where the online backups were also encrypted. There is no way that you can actually maintain offline backup. Okay, offline backup. There are people who maintain two backups: a backup and backup to a backup. Okay, the backup is actually on-site or near-site. Backup to a backup is off-site. In case of ransomware, your RTOs and RPOs are all we need to consider that, okay, but it's a chaotic situation. So we need to have two sets of backup, okay, first backup and backup to a backup. Okay, ensure all the backups are encrypted and immutable. You're not able to change it. Usually, I started my days with the backup tapes, okay. There is a write protect latch, okay, that you can actually enable to ensure that nobody writes onto it, okay. It's read only, basically. Security posture with third-party vendors. So this is something which I had been discussing even my privacy videos, okay, supply chain security or third-party risk management, third-party security. In fact, we are tying up with BCIA for a third-party cybersecurity certification that could also shed some lights onto it. But nevertheless, coming to this particular one, your third party or your vendors or suppliers should not be a gateway for the hackers to penetrate your network. Okay, SolarWinds attack is something that we all know. Okay, so that shouldn't be a reason. Okay, the vendor or supplier insecurity should not be a reason for the hackers to penetrate your network and eventually you facing a ransomware. Secure that particular gateway. Implement listing policies for application remote access. Allow only the known people. I would rather say if you're on a cloud, they'll go for secure access service edge, SASE, or zero trust network architecture. Okay, if you don't trust somebody, don't let them in. Okay, give them access, but first verify. Trust but verify is what the term that I actually use. And it all works on what is called the principles of least privileges. Okay, default to deny. So all the terms, okay, basically mean that you need to fortify your identity and access management. Document and monitor the external remote connections. If you don't trust, okay, and particular incoming connection, don't allow them to access. Don't allow them to access. VPN is fine, but there are a lot of vulnerabilities with VPNs also. But we cannot just say VPNs are vulnerable, right? The incidents are there everywhere. Which application is there? Which application does not have a vulnerability? Everything has it until we find it. Okay. Implement a recovery plan. Okay, these are all self-explanatory. Identity and access management. Strong password policy. Password should be easy to remember but hard to guess. Longer password doesn't mean that it's secure. Okay, in fact, it defeats the purpose of security if they don't write down the password somewhere. Okay, have the passwords that are reasonably strong. Okay, so they don't have to write it somewhere, but you can easily remember it. Okay, uppercase, numeric, special characters. 8 is decent. Okay, if you go for 16, 20, now we are approaching the year end. Okay, you're going to have Halloween party, Christmas party, etc. And you'll forget our password. Number of calls for resetting the password could be really huge. Okay, this is something that we are facing every year. Okay, you speak to your incident management team, they will have stories to actually tell you. Yes, and sometimes every Monday morning. Require phishing resistant multi-factor authentication. Better to go for a FIDO. We'll have a separate video on this FIDO. Okay, we have got 1-factor, 3-factor. Okay, 3-factor with Google Authenticator, all these authenticator apps, etc. But FIDO is a solution going forward. We'll have a discussion about that. Review domain controllers. All the endpoints needs to be reviewed for the security. Audit the user account. Usually what I recommend is monthly, we need to take the list of the user accounts and we need to categorize them based on the department, send it to the department owner, ask them to verify. Okay, dormant ID management. Okay. Now, if an account has not logged on the system for more than 30 days, disable it. Not more than 90 days, delete it. But all this thing needs to be done with a proper change record within proper approval, because service accounts will also not log in. Okay, but that doesn't mean that you can delete it. Right? We need to have proper approval to actually delete it. Okay. Service management is a fundamental key. Okay, for your maturity. Okay. Implement time-based access. If somebody wants to have privileged access to implement a change, resolve an incident, fulfill a request. Okay, give them just-in-time access. Okay, only for that particular window. There needs to be something called a post-implementation review. After they resolve an incident or implement a change or fulfill a request, there should be a peer review to ensure that what they have actually done is exactly what they have taken the password for. Okay, or privilege for. Okay, no more, no less. Proactive controls and active. Segment your network. Go for a VLAN segregation. It's again like an isolation word. Okay, so if people are infected with virus, keep them separately. Okay, so it's also a containment strategy, just to ensure that if one particular VLAN is going to have a malware attack, okay, and it's not spreading to all the other VLANs. So one particular portion, okay, is actually impacted, and you can deal with that. Okay, rest of the people can do their business as usual. Identify, detect, investigate abnormal activity. Basically, you need to have an network monitoring tool. I have used Nagios. Personally, if you ask me, one of the best tools for monitoring. Okay, so you can use that tool to monitor your network and just to ensure that there's no attacks, ransomware attacks, or any malware attacks on your environment. Install, regularly update, enable real-time detection for the antivirus. Okay, so from AV, we have come to EDR. From EDR, we are actually going for XDR. Okay, XDR, then it's going to remove this requirement for the SIM as well. Yeah, secure and closely monitor your complete infrastructure. Stay vigilant 24/7. Have a proper SOC team, incident management team, service management team. Okay, just to ensure that any incident that I report to the SOC team, okay, is immediately passed on to the incident management team, who will do the analysis properly and assign it to a proper team to ensure that the remediation is done ASAP. But it becomes a security incident. Okay, the SLAs actually differ. It is not a normal incident. In fact, you might not have more than an hour to resolve the incident and come back to the business as usual. All these things depend upon the policies and procedures for the organization. Vulnerability and configuration management. Keep all your operating system, applications, etc. Okay, up to date, patched. Disable the unused ports. Okay, all these things are part of your system hardening. Adding an email banner to the emails. Disable hyperlinks when it actually comes to your to your email, to your inbox. Disable command line scripting activities and permissions. Ensure the devices are properly configured, the security features are enabled. Every company will have what is called the security template. Whenever I am giving a laptop or a system, assigning to somebody, I need to ensure that unused ports are disabled, unused services are turned off, operating system is up to date patched. There's an EDR or AV, whatever it is, on the endpoint. Okay, XDR on the endpoint with up to date patching. Okay, and then local admin access is not there. There is an only approved software list is a part of the endpoint. All these applications are properly scanned for the vulnerabilities and then installed. And this actual security template. Okay, you can keep on applying this template. Okay, and to all the new allocated laptops. Now, nobody will have an admin access to install any new application. No, because that could become a gateway for the malware to penetrate your network. They want a new application, let them raise a request. Okay, then you analyze, security team should give a sign off, then it should be a part of your approved software list. Okay, then the IT team will actually install it. They can have anything, liberty to ask for anything for the project requirement, but scan it. Only if it's secure, then it gets installed, otherwise no. That's why the software asset management, ISO 55K asset management system, okay, is one of the beautiful standards to manage assets with the organization. Though it doesn't speak explicitly about the software asset, but the underlying principle remains the same. Okay. Ensure devices are properly configured, the security features are enabled. Change the default password. Okay. In fact, you can go to the internet and if you type default password for devices, okay, you can actually see it. Go to Shodan, put in the device name, get the default user ID and password. Okay, from the Shodan, you can get the IP address of the devices. You can do a telnet or whatever, RDP or PuTTY, whatever it is. Okay, if you're able to log in, see, surprisingly, in few of my penetration testing classes, we tried this and it worked. Then I recommended the organization to send out an advisory so that they can change the default password. Okay, so change the default settings, make it more secure. Okay, disable ports and protocols that are not being used. Restrict the SMB. In fact, surprisingly, this is one of the attacks that are very popular. You take any of the penetration testing tools, testing books, okay, you want to learn from. There's a very popular exploit called ms08_067 net API that actually works on the SMB vulnerability. Now, this is not an end of it, okay? It's just this is not a complete list. I'm just giving you my recommendation. And I picked up this recommendation from various sources, including the FBI. So you can follow the newsletters or alerts from CISA, alerts from FBI. I particularly like Schneer's cryptogram. Subscribe to all these newsletters, subscribe to all these alerts to ensure that you're always up to date with what's happening in the cybersecurity. You can also connect to this channel, subscribe to us. We are here to teach you a lot of things on cybersecurity. So stay connected, learn a lot. Thank you very much.